And now let's go across to our esteemed panel of guests. I'm joined by Foreign Affairs expert and the editor, Ramesh Ramachandran, who's there with us inside the studio. We're also joined by Mr. Ashok Sajjanhar, who's the former senior diplomat. Joining us on the broadcast is Dr. Harinder Sekhon, the Distinguished Fellow of Cuts International, Washington, D.C. Center. A very good evening to all the guests here present on this special broadcast. And thank you so much for taking out your time and joining this special show. Sir, first of all, coming to you, Mr. Ramesh Ramachandran, please help us understand the importance of swing states, which are the 7 in number right now, but they do play a very key role here in the US elections.
Right. Typically, let me break it down for our viewers in simple language for them to be able to understand the intricacies of the issues at hand here. Now, there are 50 US states, and each state is assigned a certain number of electoral college votes based on its population. So, Texas, for instance, has 40 electoral college votes as compared to 54 in California. Now, there are, based on the trends, the way a state votes for Republican or Democrat, one can safely assume that if Trump were to retain his base, his constituency spread across the country, then he's rest assured of a minimum number of votes of 219. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, is assured a minimum electoral college votes of 226 if she retains all the states that are traditionally voted Democratic. What's the difference is that there are 7 key states which are swing states, which we don't know whether they will vote Republican or Democrat based on previous voter trends and results. Why is that? Because Michigan, for instance, was won by Trump in 2016, but he lost it in 2020. So it remains to be seen which way these 7 key states vote. And which are the 7 key states, Deepika? North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, Nevada. What makes it more interesting, Deepika, is that there are 93 votes up for grabs in all these 7 key states. Pennsylvania accounts for the largest number at 19 electoral college votes, followed by North Carolina, Georgia, Michigan, Arizona, and so on and so forth. Now, it's important to remember that either Trump or Harris needs to win at least 270 electoral college votes to be able to become the next US president. And these 7 states determine the outcome of the election, and whoever wins Pennsylvania, Deepika, is sure to become the next US president. That's why we saw both Harris and Trump campaign the last day of the campaign in Pennsylvania. In fact, Harris held her last campaign rally in the state of Pennsylvania, which ended just before midnight before the polling began. Trump, on the other hand, traveled from Pennsylvania to adjoining state of Michigan, where he held his last campaign rally. So all eyes are on Pennsylvania and Michigan. Which way they will vote, we don't know yet, but the trend suggests that these 2 states will hold the key to the outcome of the elections. So we very interesting scenario building up, Deepika, as we speak, and it's interesting to watch out the way things pan out going forward.
So that was a comprehensive view of the 7 swing states and how they are going to play an important key role in today's results, especially if we talk about. Now let's go across to Mr. Ashok Sajjanhar, the senior diplomat. Sir, when we talk about US elections and the internal issues, they range from economy to healthcare to other issues, which means security also, considering the past shootings that we've seen. First, let's talk about economy, and I'll quote the statements here where Harris has said that her day 1 priority would be trying to reduce food and housing costs for working families, whereas Trump says he will end inflation and said more drilling for oil will lower energy costs as an example to it. Now, the result tonight would suggest which argument won the hearts, but who, according to you, presented the strongest bid to fight one of the most pressing issues, which is the economy here?
Yeah, that is, of course, one of the most important, significant issues as far as the election is concerned. As I would imagine, it is in any election around the world, because, it is these particular aspects which determine which way an individual is going to vote. What is the price of the goods, what is the cost of the goods, how, what is there to run the house, to run the kitchen, etc. So these are very, very important issues. Now, the position of, let's say, Mr. Trump is that when he was the president last time from 2017 to 2021, the economy was in a very good shape. The inflation was low, the interest rates were low, the cost of goods and commodities, particularly as far as the common goods that are used in the day-to-day living for people, that was affordable. And as far as now after 4 years, and energy prices were low. Now, after 4 years, the situation has changed. There is inflation, energy prices are going up, and there is increasing joblessness, there is increasing unemployment, and it was the times were much better 4 years ago. So he says that he has his previous track record to show, and then what he's going to do is he is going to impose tariffs on goods that are coming in, because basically his argument is that since the imports from China are taking place in such large numbers, that is why the production and manufacturing within America has come down, and that is why there is joblessness and unemployment. So he says he's going to impose tariffs of about 60% on goods coming from China, which means that there will be much greater possibility of having more manufacturing and more production and more investment and more jobs within the country. But of course, analysts and economists suggest that, if you are going to impose tariffs, those aspects, those items which are imported will tend to get imported, but they will have to pay higher costs, and so that will give rise to inflation. So that is a big aspect as far as Trump's economic plans and policies are concerned. As far as, the other aspect, what he says is that he's going to end the war. End the war in, particularly in Kiev, in Ukraine, and Russia-Ukraine conflict. And so the money that is going out from the United States to support the Ukrainian war effort, that will also, that is the taxpayers' money from the United States, that will not go, and that will help to alleviate the economic conditions and suffering of the people. As far as Kamala Harris is concerned, of course, her position is that she is going to provide benefits, and she is going to provide support to those who are buying their house for the houses for the first time, those individuals for their living, day-to-day living requirements, etc. So she is going to be focusing on the middle-class people, while she says that Trump is going to cut taxes for the rich people, and not care so much about the ordinary people. I think the fact that needs to be recognized is that earlier it used to be that Democrats used to be seen as a party of the working class people. Today they are being recognized as a party of the elites, because that is why if you see what are known as the blue states, which are principally democratic, they are either on the west coast or on the east coast, which is the prosperous region. And Donald Trump has honed into a constituency that is the Middle West, that is the Rust Belt, that is the red states in the center, where the working class, the white, male, non-college educated people who have seen that all this globalization over the last many years, that has not helped them, that has not come to their assistance. In fact, there was a statistics which said that in 1980, the earning of such people was about 7% more than the average of what the people in the United States earn. But today, after China came in and China emerged as the manufacturing capital of the world, so to say, and its trade surplus with the United States increased to $500 billion and around that figure. Then the working class, the blue-collar working class, their average salary is 12% lower than the average American. So they have faced the brunt of this globalization, which has been to their disadvantage. So these are the policies that are being advanced, Deepika, by the two candidates. And it would appear that Kamala Harris does not have a very strong case, because Trump has a track record on about which he is talking. So he has a more credible case, and that is what people seem to be believing.
Another very important and very strong ground that both the contestants are vouching upon is women and their abortion rights. I would like to come to Dr. Harinder Sikon. Dr. Sikon, Tim Walz said that women voters will have a strong voice in this election considering the kind of takes both the candidates have presented on abortion and women's health and their right. What is your take on how both the candidates have presented their take on it?
Trump has come across as a very conservative person when it comes to abortion rights. In fact, he has toed the line of the Republican Party. And as we noticed in the first debate, the September debate between Trump and Kamala Harris, she came out very strong on her views on abortion rights for women. She firmly believes that women should have a right, and she actually said repeatedly that they should have a right to take their own decision. They should have a right over their bodies. So that is something which really resounds with women in America. They all want greater freedom, and they want to have this choice given to them. And there is a feeling that some of the Republican women who are traditionally Republican actually do agree with Kamala Harris on her views on abortion rights. And she is hoping that she would be able to swing this vote, even if it is in small numbers. So that would be a very key gain for her if she can get. And she has repeatedly talked, the two planks where she emerged strong is, as I mentioned earlier also, one is that she would safeguard democracy. Trump is the unknown factor, the maverick who would upset the established order within the United States, whereas she has promised stability and also coalition building, not just overseas with American partners across the globe, but also, to heal the country from within. So she is seen as more not just as a status quoist, but she has distanced herself from some of the policies of the Biden administration and has come out with her own policy prescriptions for some of the ills that which are there within the United States. And she definitely has come across as somebody who speaks for the middle class, whether it is their economic rights, the right to affordable housing, or the women with their abortion. And in fact, she has been debating this entire issue of Roe versus Wade issue, and she has gone through the legalities and the nitty-gritties of this issue and how she would, introduce, what stages she would introduce the reforms when it comes to women, how she would also not just abortion, reform the entire healthcare system, which has not really delivered because a lot of the Obamacare was done away with during Trump's time. So how she would restore affordable healthcare for the people. So that is where she's come out very strongly. And let's see, if it really results in any votes for her, because at the end of the day, it's a very close race. And it depends on how many people, how many women voters will come and vote. Right now, the numbers, halfway through the day, it seems that a large number of women voters have come. And the other section which she's been able to energize is the youth. The college young people in colleges who are voting for the first time. She has tried to reach out to them. And I think those are her strong points, reaching out to the marginal, to the, not just the white man, because Trump appeals to the white macho man, whereas Kamala Harris has identified very closely with the black community, with the Indian Americans, and the youth and women. So I think that is where she has an advantage, definitely.
Talking about the current trend, Wilmington is witnessing a large number of voters, which are largely women and their daughters when we talk about women's rights and the healthcare system. We will talk about immigration also, which is another topic. But coming on to you, Ramesh, because we've seen the contrasting takes here. One on the economy and how Donald Trump is dealing with it. And the second one is on women and how Kamala Harris is taking it forward. And she has pressed on it till the last moment through her radio addresses also. Now, Ramesh, talk us a bit about the personality and politics of both the people, because we still remember what happened on the 6th of January and that still haunts the people somewhere.
Indeed, Deepika. To put it mildly, it's a study in contrast, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Why do I say that? Let me give you the nuts and bolts of their personalities and politics, as you put it. Kamala Harris is a lawyer by training and profession. Trump, on the other hand, is a business person. Harris is relatively young. She's at 60 years old as compared to 78 of Donald Trump. Kamala Harris comes from a mixed ancestry. She had, her father was black, her mother was an Indian, whereas Donald Trump is born with a silver spoon in his mouth, as it were. But that said, if you look at the politics of these two personalities, Deepika, Kamala Harris could well become the first woman to become the US president if she succeeds in the polling that's taking place in the US as we speak. She's the first black woman candidate to run for president and could well end up becoming the first black woman president as well, and also the first Indian American to run for office of the President of the United States of America. In contrast, here we have a man called Donald Trump, who is first president to be convicted for a felony, first former president to be convicted at the same time, impeached twice, not once but twice, and he's the second US president to seek a non-consecutive election. He won in 2016, lost in 2020, now standing for election again in 2024. By the way, he's the oldest presidential candidate in US history at 78 years old, and he survived 2 assassination attempts at that. So it's interesting to see how these two personalities fare at the hustings, so to speak. Talking about issues, women in particular, Deepika, as we discussed before, abortion, reproductive rights is the key issue for the Democrats in particular. Kamala Harris is pro-choice as compared to Donald Trump, who is pro-life. She is also bullish on democracy, as Dr. Harinder Sekhon was referring to. On the other hand, Trump is categorically speaking about two key issues in his campaign. One, immigration, and two, the economy or jobs. He says that immigrants entering the US illegally have to be booted out, so to speak, and he has promised that on day one after he wins, he will enact or implement the largest deportation in US history ever to take place, to flush out the so-called illegals from the US and send them back to where they came from. In the context of the wall that he has spoken about in his last term in 2016, when he spoke about the Mexican, the wall that separates US from Mexico. On the other hand, he's also spoken about how he wants to reduce taxes on the Americans and impose tariffs if required on the Chinese, for instance, to essentially protect American or US manufacturing. So in a way, as I mentioned, this study in contrast, and that's why we saw both Trump and Harris campaign in Pennsylvania on the last day of campaign just several hours ago. Harris is promising a quote-unquote fresh start as compared to Trump, who is talking about regaining lost glory or achieving newer heights for the US. Talking about the riots of 2021, Deepika, it's interesting because we are given to understand that reports suggest that National Guards are on standby to be deployed if necessary as the polling progresses and counting draws near. Will Trump accept the verdict? He says he will if. He qualifies it by saying if the voting or polling was fair. We don't know how he categorizes it. We'll have to wait and watch. At the same time, his lawyers are planning to battle it out in the courts, so to speak, to press upon the advantage that the Republicans have in some key states. So all in all, it's a mixed bag for the Republicans and the Democrats. It remains to be seen how it eventually pans out in the next several hours going forward.
Indeed, that is what everybody is eyeing upon, because this is a very stark contrast when we talk about what happened on the 6th of January and the statement what Trump has said that he will concede the result if they are fair. But as you said, what happens remains to be seen. Now let's talk about another very important issue where again a very stark contrast has been seen by both the candidates is immigration. Coming on to you, Mr. Ashok Sajjanhar, Harris, if wins, is likely to carry forward the plan set up by Biden administration, whereas Trump has vowed to seal the border when we talk about immigration. In both the cases, what are the loopholes that you see?
Yeah, as far as immigration is concerned, again, that's really become a red hot button issue, between as far as this election is concerned. And, Trump, when he came in 2016, he had said that he would construct a wall on the Mexican border and basically to stop the illegal immigration coming in from Mexico and from the other South American countries into America. That could not be done, and but he was able to keep in check because of several of the initiatives that he had taken during his presidency. He was able to keep in check the illegal immigration during his tenure. But what we have seen over the last three and a half years, that President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been in office, that the number of illegal migrants that have come into the United States has jumped very hugely, and that is considered to be a very, in addition to the economy, as I said, which is seen, although at the macro level, the American economy seems to be doing quite well. But as far as the living conditions of the people are concerned, they have deteriorated. So while economy is seen as one of the, if one could call it the failures or one of the weaker points as far as Kamala Harris is concerned, so also is immigration, because she was put in charge of controlling immigration from the southern border, and she has not been successful. Her plan of action is that we should have a bipartisan bill. There was a bipartisan bill, and that if it had gone through, it would have sort of funded more officials on the southern border so that the immigration of illegal people who are trying to stream in, that could have been controlled. But Donald Trump specifically instructed the Republican lawmakers that they should not support it, because that would give a victory to Joe Biden, which he didn't want to give. And he said that immigration was an important issue that he wanted to use in the election. So what Kamala Harris is saying is that if she were to become president, she is going to reactivate that bipartisan bill, so that there will be much greater provisions for stopping illegal immigration into the United States. And as Ramesh has just said, and very correctly, what Donald Trump is claiming is that on the first day he is going to deport millions of illegal migrants to the countries from where they came. But I think this is more easily said than it is implemented. So I think it is only for electoral purposes that it is being said. It will be not be possible to do that in that sense. But if either of them were to become president, I think definitely Kamala Harris is going to be more liberal as far as legal immigrants are concerned, and Donald Trump, because he wants to preserve jobs for the American people, so he will be more stringent and more strict on the entry even of legal immigrants, which are required by the U.S. economy and U.S. system, because if you want to get fresh talent from outside, then you need such legal migration coming into the country. But these are the two very varied and very diverse views on this very important subject. But here also, I would say that, Donald Trump has a better argument that he has been able to present to the people of America.
Now, moving beyond the concerns of the United States, US election has a lot to do with the current geopolitical conditions as well. Coming on to you, Dr. Sekho. Now, Kamala Harris has vowed to support Ukraine for as long as it takes, whereas Donald Trump wants the US to disentangle itself from conflicts elsewhere in the world. But we do see a growing support for Trump from Russia and elsewhere. Do you think that Harris may lose her vote here, considering the sort of statements she's made on foreign policy specifically?
She definitely came across as somebody who did not have a well-articulated view on foreign policy. But then Trump was equally controversial because he did not say, he said he would end the war in Ukraine very soon. And that is something which he kept repeating both at his debate and even in the subsequent statements he has made. But he does not say how he is going to end the war in Ukraine. He was asked a very pointed question that would he cut off all aid to Ukraine or would he let NATO take care of the war in Ukraine? And he had no answer to that. But he says, I will speak with my friend Putin and we will but these things are not simple. Campaigning is something and being a candidate is something very different from when you become president. And so far we have seen that there is a continuity in US foreign policy. And even earlier he said that, the last time he won the election, he thought he would take he would make NATO take greater responsibility, which to a certain extent, I think the US administrations did tell NATO to adopt at least 2%, of their budget to give for their own security, European security. But when it comes to foreign wars, it depends because Trump could also make certain loose statements which may not go very well. And his earlier stint has shown, his earlier administration, that he could not really mend bridges with Russia because maybe he was on the back foot because of a so-called tape and he seemed to be under some kind of scrutiny on his links with Russia. So the policy was a continuity. He focused more on the Indo-Pacific, which Biden has strengthened. So I don't see either of them really deviating. Trump's, the US policy as such has been that they will not withdraw from the Middle East. Both parties support Israel and the war effort. I think Kamala Harris, in the last few months, she's had very short time as a candidate, but she has traveled extensively both to East Asia and also she's gone to the Middle East. So I think she's more energetic, definitely, and understands the issues. And I think, as Ambassador Sajjan Har was saying, she is going to be the softer voice of American foreign policy if she comes, whereas Trump could get a little rhetorical. It's good to make these high-sounding statements because you are a candidate. But when it comes to policy, the US electorate, of course, would want the US to withdraw from the wars and let Europe handle the affairs. But then the repercussions of such a move is something which both would have to, either of them, whoever becomes the president, would really have to think out the repercussions of a US withdrawal from Europe. I mean, you cannot let your NATO partners down. You cannot leave Ukraine because that strengthens Russia and China. So the geopolitics is a very complicated affair. It has drawn a little more attention, the geopolitical and world affairs, in this election than has been the case in the past.
All right.
But I don't think either of the candidates or whoever becomes president, policy is not going to be something fundamental to US interests.
All right. So whether rhetorics find its space or the soft voice prevails remains to be seen. Thank you so much, Mr. Ramesh Ramachandran, for joining us, Mr. Ashok Sajjan Har and Dr. Sekho for joining us on the special broadcast. We'll keep coming back to you. Thank you so much for joining us right now.